Have you ever wondered what truly happens to a soul that leaves this world quietly, while the body rests in sleep? Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, revealed that death in sleep is not an accident, nor is it a mystery hidden from divine law. He explained that in the silence of night, when the body lays still and the soul is already accustomed to leaving during dreams, the passage into eternity can happen with peace and without struggle. Imagine the first dawn of that soul, not the rising of the sun on earth, but the awakening of consciousness in a higher dimension, a new morning where time, pain, and fear no longer exist. Cayce's readings show that the soul that departs in sleep does not wake to confusion, but to clarity, to the embrace of the spiritual realms that receive it. This is not just theory, it is a truth that challenges us to think about our own lives, our faith, and the way we prepare for the eternal journey. Stay with me until the end of this video, because what Cayce revealed will touch the deepest part of your heart and may forever change the way you see death and life itself. And I want you to interact. Write in the comments what you believe happens in that first dawn of the soul. I will read and mark each one with a little heart to show you that your voice matters here. When Edgar Cayce spoke about the mystery of death, he did not describe it as an ending, but as a transition, a continuation of life in another dimension of existence. In his readings, Cayce explained that the soul leaves the body every night during sleep, connected only by the silver cord that ties the spirit to its earthly vessel. This means that when a person dies in their sleep, the process is not sudden or violent. It is the natural extension of what already happens nightly. The soul simply does not return to the body, and instead awakens to a new dawn, a spiritual morning far more radiant than any sunrise on earth. Cayce taught that this moment is calm, free from fear, and filled with the presence of divine order. It is as if the soul slips gently from one room to another, carrying with it the awareness that life does not end but expands. For those left behind, it may seem sudden, but for the soul itself, the experience is often peaceful and harmonious, proving that the Creator designed life and death as parts of the same eternal flow. Cayce emphasized that the soul departing in sleep often experiences clarity and serenity, because the consciousness is already accustomed to drifting beyond the body in dreams. This familiarity reduces resistance and fear, allowing the soul to awaken with acceptance. He compared this transition to the rising of the inner sun, a light that does not burn the eyes but illuminates the spirit with truth. In this state, the soul is greeted not by shadows, but by guides, loved ones, or angelic presences prepared by divine law to receive it. This awakening is not random. It reflects the life lived, the intentions carried, and the spiritual progress made during the earthly journey. According to Cayce, the quality of that first dawn depends on how the individual cultivated love, forgiveness, and service in their daily walk. Death in sleep is a gift for some, because it spares the consciousness the shock of separation and instead offers a gentle passage into eternity. In his readings, Cayce reminded seekers that the Bible itself speaks of the moment when the silver cord is loosed and the spirit returns to God. He warned that this truth should not be ignored, because how we live shapes how we die. If the heart is filled with bitterness or fear, the transition can be clouded with confusion. But when the heart is aligned with faith and trust in the divine, the moment of passing becomes like the quiet opening of a door into a brighter world. He explained that death during sleep symbolizes surrender, the ultimate act of releasing the body without struggle. For the soul, this is not darkness but awakening. Imagine going to bed one night, unaware that it is your last on earth, and instead of waking to the limitations of the body, you open your eyes in the vastness of spirit. That moment is the first dawn of eternity, and Cayce assured that it is as real and ordered as the laws of nature. This teaching challenges our perception of mortality. Cayce insisted that death should not be feared, because it is simply the continuation of the journey. He described how souls who die in sleep often report sensations of freedom, as if rising gently above the body and observing it from a distance before moving toward the light. These testimonies, reflected in his readings, reveal that the soul knows instinctively where to go, guided by divine forces that never abandon it. The peace of this passage demonstrates that life is not extinguished, but redirected. It also carries a powerful lesson for those who remain: the importance of living with awareness, cultivating the spirit, and preparing daily for that inevitable dawn. Cayce's revelations remind us that every night we practice letting go, and one night we will not return. Yet in that departure lies the greatest promise, that death in sleep is not an end, but the opening chapter of a greater reality waiting beyond. Cayce explained that this process is not to be seen as something mysterious beyond comprehension, but as a divine design that reflects order, not chaos. Every soul is tied to the physical body through the silver cord, and as long as that cord remains intact, life continues in the material form. During sleep, the cord stretches, allowing the soul to travel, dream, and commune with realities beyond the physical senses. But when death arrives quietly in the night, the cord is loosed permanently, and the soul is drawn into its rightful place beyond the veil. In this sense, dying in sleep is not a sudden tearing, but the simple release of something that was already stretched across dimensions. Cayce described it as the difference between extinguishing a flame and allowing it to grow into a brighter fire. The flame does not die, it only shifts into a new state of radiance. This image helps us understand that the soul continues with consciousness, stepping into a dawn more real than any earthly sunrise. What Cayce revealed carries a powerful message for the living. He insisted that the way we think, act, and pray prepares us for that first moment beyond death. If we cultivate fear and selfishness, our awakening may be clouded, but if we live with faith and service, the soul awakens in harmony. This means that even the way one dies reflects the choices of daily life. To die in sleep peacefully is not merely luck. It can be the outcome of a heart reconciled with God. The soul departs without struggle, received by guides who help it understand the new reality. This is why Cayce reminded us not to fear death, but to live so fully that the transition is natural. Just as a traveler sets down to rest at night and awakens in a new land, the soul that dies in sleep crosses a boundary that is soft and filled with promise. This truth awakens a deep question in each of us. Are we living in a way that prepares us for that dawn? Cayce often highlighted that dreams themselves are evidence of the soul's journey beyond the body. In sleep, the spirit visits realms of learning, healing, and even communion with loved ones who have passed. When death comes during sleep, the soul is already in motion, already reaching toward those planes. The difference is that it simply does not return to the body. For the soul, this is seamless. It is not a collapse into nothingness, but an awakening into everything. The transition is guided, structured, and infused with divine law. It shows us that life and death are woven into one fabric, that the Creator's plan is merciful and precise. Cayce reassured many who feared death that what they most dreaded was in fact a passage into clarity. In the quiet of night, when the body rests and the soul is free, eternity can begin without alarm, just as naturally as the breaking of dawn. To reflect on this is to confront the meaning of our own mortality. Cayce's message challenges us to live each day with awareness that our souls are eternal and that the physical body is only a temporary dwelling. To die in sleep is to step across the boundary without fear, carried by the same rhythm that guides dreams. This reveals that death is not an interruption of life, but a continuation of its purpose. For the one who departs, it is the first dawn of a greater day. For those who remain, it is an invitation to trust, to understand that love and prayer still connect us across dimensions. Cayce's teachings offer comfort. No soul departs alone, and no soul is abandoned. In the stillness of that final sleep, the eternal journey begins, and the soul discovers that what seemed like an ending was only the beginning of an endless dawn. In many of his readings, Cayce connected this transition to the words of Scripture, affirming that the soul returning to God is not an abstract idea but a universal law. He pointed to the passage in Ecclesiastes where it is written that when the silver cord is loosed, the spirit returns to its source. To Cayce, this was not poetry but reality. He taught that when the body falls into its final sleep, the soul does not wander aimlessly. Instead, it is drawn by the power of divine law to the realm that corresponds with its spiritual growth. This is why some awaken in brightness and others in dimness, not as a punishment, but as a reflection of the inner life they cultivated. The first dawn of the soul after death is therefore deeply personal, shaped by the choices, the prayers, and the deeds carried out while in the body. Dying in sleep only softens the departure, making the step less harsh, but the direction remains determined by the soul's own vibration. Cayce was clear that this truth should not inspire fear, but responsibility. Each person, he said, has the opportunity daily to elevate their consciousness, to align with God's purpose, so that when the cord is broken, the awakening is radiant. He often described the soul's first awareness beyond death as one of recognition of divine order, of familiar presences, of a peace deeper than anything felt on earth. Yet he also noted that some souls awaken with confusion if they have lived without faith or have resisted the inner call of conscience. For them, the first dawn may appear dim until they are guided toward understanding. But even then, Cayce insisted, no soul is abandoned. The Creator's mercy ensures that every spirit is met, instructed, and led toward growth. The difference is the clarity with which that first moment is experienced. And for those who die in sleep, the transition is often gentle enough to remove much of the fear that otherwise haunts the dying process. It is striking to realize that according to Cayce, every night we rehearse this great passage. The act of leaving the body in dreams, held by the silver cord, is a daily reminder that our existence is not confined to the physical. When the final night comes, the process is familiar, a continuation of what has always been. The soul slips from the body, but instead of returning, it follows the call of light. This perspective transforms the way we think about death. Instead of an unknown terror, it becomes a natural stage of life, as ordered as the setting of the sun. And for the one who dies in sleep, the soul awakens not with fear, but with recognition, as if waking from one dream into another, more lasting and more real. The testimony of Cayce's readings lifts the veil, showing us that death is not an interruption, but a passage written into the design of creation. The implications of this truth are profound. If dying in sleep is gentle for the soul, then the focus for us should be on how we live while awake. Cayce urged people to cultivate forgiveness, kindness, and service, for these qualities form the light that the soul carries into eternity. The first dawn after death is not shaped by wealth, fame, or possessions, but by the state of the heart. This challenges us to measure our lives not by external standards, but by inner growth. In this way, Cayce's message was both comforting and convicting. It assured that death need not be feared, but it also reminded us that the responsibility rests with us to prepare for that moment. For those who die in their sleep, the passage may be calm, but the clarity of their awakening depends on how they lived. The first dawn of the soul is therefore the mirror of a lifetime, a reflection of the seeds planted in the soil of the spirit. Cayce explained that the moment of awakening beyond death is often filled with symbols and impressions that mirror the life just lived. For some, the first awareness may be of a radiant light, a warmth that communicates both love and recognition. For others, it may be the sense of being lifted or carried, as if unseen hands were guiding them through a doorway. He emphasized that these experiences are not illusions, but the soul's way of translating spiritual realities into forms it can understand. The first dawn of the soul is not about physical sunrise, but about the illumination of consciousness, as it realizes it is no longer bound by the body. For those who die in sleep, this realization comes gently, often without fear, because the transition feels so natural. It is not a violent break, but a continuation, as though one dream ended and another began. Cayce assured that divine law ensures no soul crosses alone. Guidance is always present, even if the awareness of it varies from soul to soul. One of the most moving points in Cayce's readings is his insistence that the quality of this awakening is shaped by love. If a soul has practiced forgiveness, kindness, and compassion, it is drawn toward brighter realms. If a soul has resisted growth, clung to bitterness, or ignored the call of conscience, its first awareness may feel dim. Yet Cayce never described this as eternal punishment, but as the natural result of spiritual vibration. Just as light and darkness follow natural laws, so too does the soul gravitate to the level it is prepared for. In this way, the first dawn is a reflection, not a judgment imposed from without. It is a mirror of what the soul has cultivated in life. And for those who die in sleep, the passage into that mirror is softened by the peace of unconscious surrender, making the transition less fearful, though no less revealing of the truth. Cayce often urged people to meditate and pray before sleep, not only as a practice for rest, but as a way of aligning the soul with higher realms. He explained that the state of mind in which we fall asleep influences the journeys of the soul during the night. To die in sleep while holding bitterness can cloud the awareness of the dawn, but to die in sleep with a heart turned toward God can open the gates of light more clearly. This is why he saw every night as preparation for eternity. Each time we close our eyes, we practice the act of release. Each dream is a rehearsal for the greater awakening. Death in sleep, therefore, is not random. It is woven into the rhythm of life, a rhythm designed to remind us daily that we are more than bodies, that we are eternal souls in process. In his readings, Cayce described the soul's awakening as filled with both continuity and expansion. Continuity because the soul recognizes familiar patterns, dreamlike scenes, loved ones who appear, or sensations it has felt before. Expansion because the limitations of the body fall away and the soul realizes its true nature. He explained that many souls who die in sleep first become aware of observing their own bodies as if floating above them, before turning toward the light that calls them onward. This awareness is not frightening, it is liberating. The soul feels weightless, timeless, and embraced by a presence greater than itself. This is the dawn that Cayce wanted people to understand. Not a loss but a beginning, not a closing but an opening. And he urged that we live in such a way that when our own dawn comes, whether in sleep or in waking, it will be one of peace, clarity, and reunion with the Creator. Cayce often described that no soul awakens in complete isolation. He explained that when the silver cord is loosed and the spirit rises, there are always presences nearby, guides, angels, or loved ones who have gone before. These figures are not imagined. They are real beings within the spiritual dimensions who serve as helpers in the transition. According to Cayce, this reception is a part of divine mercy, ensuring that the soul is not left in confusion. The first dawn of the soul is therefore not a solitary awakening, but a welcoming. For those who die in sleep, this is especially profound, because the departure is gentle and the awareness of these guides comes quickly. Cayce said that the soul may hear reassuring voices or sense the embrace of love, as if being reminded instantly that death is not an end but a return. This guidance confirms the truth that life is eternal and that we are never abandoned in the passage between worlds. He emphasized that the presence of loved ones does not mean the soul is bound to the past, but rather that God allows familiar faces to appear as a comfort. These presences serve to orient the soul, to reassure it that it is safe, and to encourage it toward growth. Cayce explained that souls are drawn together by love, and love is the only bond that survives death fully intact. The first dawn of the soul, therefore, is often marked by reunion. For someone who dies in their sleep, this reunion may come immediately, as the soul shifts from dreams into the reality of spirit and sees those it loved welcoming it home. This image is not sentimental, but a reflection of the natural law of attraction that governs the soul's journey. Just as gravity pulls matter on earth, love pulls souls together in eternity. The clarity of this recognition depends on the life lived, but the truth of it is constant. Cayce also warned that the awakening is shaped by spiritual choices. If a soul clings to earthly desires or resentments, the first dawn may feel heavy. Instead of light, there may be shadows, confusion, or attachment to the body left behind. Yet he made it clear that these states are temporary. The soul is never forsaken. Guides and teachers continue to work with it until understanding comes. This process is part of the education of the spirit. For those who die in sleep, the peaceful nature of the departure often reduces resistance, making it easier for the soul to let go. Still, the responsibility of preparing for this moment rests on how we live. Cayce urged people to forgive daily, to serve others, and to cultivate prayer because these acts strengthen the soul's ability to awaken with clarity. The first dawn is not random. It is the harvest of the seeds planted in the soil of the heart. What makes Cayce's teaching so moving is that they join mystery with practicality. He did not describe death in sleep as an abstract concept, but as a real and repeatable process that each of us will face. By living with awareness, we participate in shaping our own awakening. The first dawn of the soul becomes not something to fear, but something to prepare for with hope. Cayce's reassurance is powerful. Death in sleep is not a thief stealing life, but a door opening to greater life. For the soul, it is a return to the source from which it came, guided by love, surrounded by presence, and welcomed by a light that no earthly sunrise can equal. This truth, when understood, does not only comfort the grieving, but also inspires the living to walk each day with faith, so that their own dawn will be filled with peace and recognition rather than fear and confusion. Cayce's message about dying in sleep is ultimately one of reassurance and responsibility. He showed that the moment of transition is not random or chaotic, but part of the divine order that sustains the universe. The silver cord, invisible yet unbreakable until the appointed time, ensures that no soul departs before its moment. And when that moment comes during sleep, it is often a gift of peace. The body rests, the breath slows, and the soul, already accustomed to leaving in dreams, simply does not return. It awakens instead to its true home, a dawn brighter than any earthly light. Cayce wanted us to understand that this passage is not to be feared, but embraced as the fulfillment of life's purpose. Death in sleep becomes a reminder that we are not our bodies, that we are eternal beings destined for growth, and that God's mercy surrounds us even in the silence of night. He urged everyone to prepare for this moment, not by fearing it, but by living in alignment with the higher laws of love. Every act of kindness, every prayer of forgiveness, every choice to serve others strengthens the soul's ability to awaken clearly. In this sense, life is a preparation for death, and death is a preparation for greater life. The first dawn of the soul reflects the heart we carry within us. If we live with resentment and selfishness, we cloud our awakening. If we live with faith and compassion, we open the way to light. Cayce's teachings challenge us to live with eternity in mind, knowing that the way we die mirrors the way we live. For those who die in their sleep, the departure may be gentle, but the clarity of the awakening still depends on the soul's choices. Each day becomes a step toward that dawn, and each night a rehearsal for the greater awakening to come. Cayce never allowed people to believe they were powerless in shaping their destiny. He emphasized that God has given every soul free will, and that free will determines the path of growth. To die in sleep may feel like a mystery to those who remain, but for the soul, it is the natural continuation of its journey. In his readings, Cayce reminded seekers that no one should live in fear of death. Fear blinds the mind and weakens the spirit. Instead, we are called to live with faith, trusting that the laws of God are merciful and just. The first dawn of the soul is not the end of anything, but the unveiling of truth. It is the moment when the soul recognizes what it has always been, eternal, loved, and destined to return to its source. This recognition is what makes death in sleep not only peaceful, but profoundly meaningful. So when we think about the mystery of death, especially death that comes quietly in sleep, we should remember Cayce's vision, that the soul rises, greeted by love, guided by light, and awakened to eternity. There is nothing to fear in this passage if we live with awareness. The first dawn is waiting for every soul, and how it shines depends on the choices we make today. Let this truth stir your heart, not with dread, but with hope. Live with purpose, forgive freely, pray sincerely, serve with love. In doing so, you prepare not just for death, but for the greatest awakening you will ever experience. And now I want to hear from you. What do you believe happens in that first dawn of the soul? Write your thoughts in the comments below. I will read each one and mark it with a little heart to show you that your voice matters here. And if this message has touched you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it so that more people can discover the peace and clarity found in the teachings of Edgar Cayce. Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet, did not speak lightly when he warned about the silver cord at the moment of death. For him, this mysterious thread was not a poetic image, but a spiritual reality that determined the very boundary between life and eternity. Mentioned in Scripture and confirmed in his readings, the silver cord is the divine bond that ties the soul to the body. As long as it remains intact, we live, breathe, and carry out our earthly mission. But when it is loosed, the soul departs, and no power on earth can hold it back. Cayce warned that ignoring this truth leads to fear, confusion, and resistance at death, while understanding it prepares the soul for peace, clarity, and reunion with God. Why did he place such urgency on this warning? Because he knew that the way we live shapes the way we die, and the moment the cord breaks, reveals who we have become. Stay with me until the end of this video to uncover why Cayce spoke so strongly about this sacred bond, and share your thoughts in the comments. I will personally mark every single one with a heart to show that your voice has been heard. Edgar Cayce's warning about the silver cord was not given to inspire fear, but to awaken awareness of one of the most sacred mysteries of human existence. He explained that this cord, invisible to the human eye yet real in the spiritual body, is what holds the soul and the flesh together. As long as it remains, no matter how weak the body may seem, life continues. But when it breaks, the body is left behind, and the soul is free to enter eternity. This was not a metaphor or speculation in Cayce's work. It was part of his documented readings, where again and again he emphasized that the state of the soul at the moment of the cord's release determines the experience of death and the reality that follows. His warning was simple but profound. Do not wait until that moment to prepare, because the cord will break for all, and what you carry in spirit is all that will remain. Cayce often pointed to Ecclesiastes, where Scripture declares that when the silver cord is loosed, the spirit returns to God who gave it. For him, this was not only ancient wisdom, but a spiritual law confirmed in his readings. He described how many cling to the material world, ignoring the life of the soul, only to face fear and confusion when the cord is finally broken. That was the essence of his warning. To live in denial of the spiritual life is to risk a painful awakening when death arrives. The cord is not a choice, it is a law. Its breaking will come, whether we are ready or not. The only freedom we have is to prepare the soul so that when the moment arrives, it is one of peace, not of resistance. Cayce wanted people to understand that living selfishly, without faith or love, does not change the reality of the cord, but it does change how the soul experiences the transition. In his readings, Cayce described how those who ignored the spiritual side of life often faced confusion after death. When the silver cord was released, they struggled to accept that life continued, clinging to earthly desires or refusing to let go of the body. Some lingered near familiar places, lost in attachment, unable to see the light offered to them. This is why he warned so urgently, the condition of the soul at death cannot be hidden. It is revealed instantly. Just as a plant cannot produce fruit it never cultivated, the soul cannot manifest light it never sought. His message was not condemnation, but responsibility. Every act of kindness, every prayer, every moment of forgiveness prepares the soul for the inevitable release. Every act of selfishness, hatred, or denial leaves it unprepared. Cayce's warnings also carried hope. He insisted that God's mercy is always present, even for those unprepared. Spiritual guides appear, loved ones return, and divine light reaches out to every soul. But the difference lies in how the soul responds. A prepared soul recognizes the light and moves forward in peace. An unprepared soul resists, clings, and delays its growth. The cord breaking reveals the truth, but it is the choices of life that shape what that truth will look like. Cayce's voice, therefore, was both a prophet's call and a father's plea. Do not waste your time. Do not live as if life ends with the body. Remember the cord. Remember that it will break. And live in such a way that when it does, your soul rises without fear into the arms of God. Cayce explained that one of the reasons he warned so strongly about the silver cord was because most people live as if death is far away, forgetting that the cord can break at any moment. He said that life is fragile, and although the soul is eternal, the body is temporary and vulnerable. To ignore this truth is to build one's life on illusions, clinging to wealth, power, or status that will mean nothing when the cord is loosed. He warned that those who define themselves only by material things may face deep shock when death arrives, because the moment the cord breaks, none of those possessions follow. The soul is stripped of all earthly masks and stands in truth before God. For Cayce, this reality was not meant to create fear but urgency, to remind us that preparation must happen now, not later. Every day of life is an opportunity to build treasures that last beyond the grave. He described the silver cord as a spiritual lifeline, a channel through which divine energy flows into the body. While food and breath sustain the physical, it is the cord that sustains life itself. That is why he explained that people close to death may seem ready to depart, yet remain alive for days or even weeks. The cord has not yet broken. It is also why some people survive accidents or illnesses that should have ended their lives. The cord is still intact. Cayce's warning was that no one can control when this moment comes. The timing belongs to God alone. What we can control is the state of our soul when it happens. He urged people to live with prayer, forgiveness, and service, because these practices prepare the soul to meet the breaking of the cord with peace rather than fear. Cayce also warned that resisting spiritual truth in life can create unnecessary suffering in death. He explained that when the cord breaks, the soul awakens instantly to realities it ignored while in the body. For some, this means confusion and denial. They may cling to the body, not believing they have died. They may wander close to the earth, attached to people or possessions, unable to move forward. Cayce said this is why so many souls linger after death, not as punishment, but because they are unprepared to accept the truth. His warning was clear. Live now with awareness, so that when the time comes, your soul will recognize the light and rise freely. To ignore the spirit now is to risk blindness then. The cord does not wait for readiness. It breaks according to divine order. Despite these warnings, Cayce always spoke with hope. He explained that no soul is ever abandoned, no matter how unprepared it may be. Spiritual guides and loved ones who have already passed are always near at the moment of transition. They encourage, they guide, they help the soul move forward. But Cayce's urgency came from the reality that a prepared soul experiences this moment with peace, while an unprepared one may struggle. His warning was meant to protect, to awaken, to call people to live with greater purpose. To understand the silver cord is to understand the sacredness of life and the certainty of eternity. Cayce wanted people to know that death is not the end, but the state of the soul at death determines how the journey continues. The cord reveals what we have built inside, and the moment it breaks, shows us who we truly are. Cayce also connected his warning about the silver cord with the law of cause and effect. He explained that every thought, every word, and every action creates an imprint on the soul. These imprints are not erased when the cord breaks. They accompany the soul into eternity. When the transition comes, the soul encounters the record of its life, not as an external judgment, but as a mirror of truth. This is why Cayce urged people to live consciously, to guard their thoughts and motives, because even the unseen parts of life are revealed when the cord is loosed. For those who have lived with love, the review is filled with peace and gratitude. For those who have lived in selfishness, the review can be painful, because the soul feels the weight of every harm it caused. His warning was that nothing is hidden, and the best preparation for death is to live each day as if it matters in eternity, because it does. He often described the moment after the cord breaks as a profound awakening. The soul, freed from the body, perceives a light greater than anything it knew on earth. For some, this light is immediately comforting, like stepping into the presence of God. For others, it can be overwhelming, especially if they resisted the spiritual life while alive. Cayce warned that unprepared souls may even turn away from the light at first, clinging to earthly attachments. But the light does not vanish. God's mercy continues to call them forward. His warning, therefore, was not only about the inevitability of death, but about the state of readiness that determines how we experience that first encounter with eternity. To live with faith and love is to recognize the light as home. To live in denial is to fear it, even though it still welcomes us. Cayce's readings also explained that the silver cord is not only about death, but about life itself. He said that during dreams, meditation, or moments of deep spiritual experience, the soul can leave the body temporarily, yet always remains tied by the cord. This explains why people may dream of traveling to distant places, meeting loved ones, or receiving visions and still awaken safely. The cord acts as a safeguard, ensuring that as long as life continues, the soul will return. Only when the cord breaks does the separation become permanent. His warning about death was therefore also a call to respect the spiritual experiences of life. Dreams, visions, and moments of inspiration are glimpses of eternity, safeguarded by the silver cord, reminding us that we are more than flesh and blood. Another aspect of Cayce's warning was directed at those who feared death excessively. He explained that fear itself creates resistance, making the transition more difficult. Fear of death, he said, comes from ignorance of the spiritual reality. To understand the silver cord is to remove this fear. Cayce wanted people to know that death is as natural as birth, and the cord is the divine instrument that governs this passage. By warning about it, he was not trying to frighten, but to prepare. He wanted people to see death not as a terror but as a sacred step, a moment when the soul is released to its true home. His words encourage us to replace fear with faith and anxiety with trust, so that when the cord is broken, the experience is not one of dread, but of peace. Cayce also warned that neglecting the spiritual life during earthly existence can create a heavy burden for the soul once the silver cord breaks. He described how some souls, upon leaving the body, remain close to the earth, unwilling or unable to move forward. These souls cling to familiar places, to loved ones, or even to material possessions, blinded by attachment. For Cayce, this was not eternal damnation, but a delay in growth. His warning was that such attachment can cause unnecessary suffering, because the soul resists the very release meant to bring peace. The solution, he said, is to live now with detachment, not in the sense of abandoning life, but of holding things loosely, with gratitude, but without dependence. The more a soul aligns with love, faith, and service, the easier the passage becomes. His caution was a reminder that every day is practice for eternity. He explained further that prayer from those still living can greatly help the newly departed. Cayce encouraged families to surround their loved ones in faith even after death, because the soul is sensitive to these energies. Prayers, he said, act like light, guiding the spirit toward higher realms and easing confusion. His warning was not only for individuals to prepare themselves, but for communities to support one another in the sacred process of death. In this sense, the breaking of the silver cord was never meant to be faced in isolation. It was a spiritual event involving both the living and the departed, connected through love and faith. To neglect prayer was to withhold a powerful gift, while to offer it was to participate in God's work of guiding souls into the light. Cayce also noted that while every cord will break, the experience can differ greatly. For those who cultivated faith and sought God daily, the release is gentle, like falling into sleep and awakening in a brighter room. For those who hardened their hearts, resisted forgiveness, or denied their spiritual nature, the release can feel disorienting. Yet even then, divine mercy remains. Guides still appear, loved ones still reach out, and the soul is still invited into light. Cayce's warning was meant to remove the illusion that our choices do not matter. He insisted that life is sacred training, every thought a seed, every act a preparation. When the cord breaks, the harvest is revealed. This truth was his gift, but also his challenge. Live in such a way that death is not a fearful unknown, but a welcomed passage. Finally, Cayce compared the breaking of the silver cord to the process of reincarnation. Just as the cord ties a soul to one body, its breaking frees the soul for another stage of existence. After reviewing its life and spending time in the spiritual realms, the soul may choose or be guided to return in a new incarnation, beginning again with a new cord connecting body and spirit. His warning here was subtle but powerful. Life is not a one-time chance, but every choice matters because it shapes the soul's path through eternity. To waste one life is to delay progress, but to live faithfully is to accelerate growth. In this view, the cord is both the symbol of mortality and the reminder of eternity. Its breaking is not the end, but a turning point in the infinite journey of the soul. Cayce warned that ignoring the reality of the silver cord can make a soul unprepared for the truth of eternity. He explained that many live as if the body is all there is, but when the cord breaks, they discover instantly that they are more than flesh. For these souls, the awakening can be shocking, because everything they trusted, their possessions, their status, their pride, remains behind. All that continues is the condition of the soul itself. His warning was that if we live blind to the Spirit, death will reveal that blindness. But if we live aware of the Spirit, death will reveal light and peace. This truth is sobering but also liberating, because it reminds us that every choice matters. Life is the training ground for eternity, and the silver cord is the line that marks the passage from one stage to the next. He also explained that the moment the cord breaks, the soul is fully conscious. It knows that it has left the body, and it perceives realities far greater than the earthly dimension. For some, this consciousness is joyful, filled with the presence of loved ones and guides. For others, it may be confusing, as they cling to the body or refuse to accept what has happened. Cayce's warning was that preparation makes all the difference. A soul that cultivated prayer, meditation, and love in life will naturally embrace the light. A soul that resisted these things may hesitate, but even then, divine mercy calls it forward. The difference is in the level of readiness, not in God's willingness to receive. His words carried both warning and hope. Prepare now so that your passage is filled with peace. Cayce reminded his listeners that the cord breaking is not to be feared, but to be respected. Death is inevitable, but how it is experienced depends on how life is lived. He spoke often of the law of love, urging people to forgive quickly, to help others, and to live with gratitude. These actions, he said, are the treasures that carry beyond death. When the cord is broken, material things vanish, but the soul carries the record of its love. This was the heart of his warning. Do not waste life on what cannot last. Focus instead on what endures. His voice was both prophetic and practical, guiding people to live with eternal perspective. The cord will break, that is certain. The question is, what condition the soul will be in when it happens. He also explained that understanding the silver cord changes the way we face grief. For those who lose loved ones, Cayce said the knowledge that the cord has broken is not a reason for despair, but for faith. The soul continues, the journey goes on, and connections of love are never destroyed. He warned against clinging to grief in ways that hold the departed back, urging instead that families pray for the soul's peace and release. In this way, even grief becomes an act of love, a participation in guiding the soul toward light. His warning about the silver cord was not just for the dying but for the living, reminding us that our attitudes, prayers, and faith all play a role in the sacred process of death. Cayce's final warning about the silver cord was simple yet powerful. Remember that it will break, and live as if every day matters. He explained that the body is only a temporary vessel, a tool for growth, but the soul is eternal. The silver cord is the divine thread that ties the two together until the appointed time of release. When that moment comes, no wealth, no pride, no earthly power can stop it. The only thing that carries forward is the record of the soul. This truth should awaken us to responsibility, but also to hope. Responsibility because every thought and action is eternal. Hope because God's mercy ensures that no soul is lost. The breaking of the cord is not an end, but a transition, a homecoming, and an unveiling of truth. Cayce urged people to live with love, faith, and forgiveness, so that when this moment comes, the passage is filled with peace rather than fear. He explained that the silver cord is like the umbilical cord of the soul. It nourishes, sustains, and ties us to life, but it is meant to be released at the right time. Just as a child cannot remain in the womb forever, the soul cannot remain in the body forever. Death is birth into a greater world, and the cord is the bridge. To understand this is to remove fear, because we see that God's design is merciful and ordered. Cayce's warning was never about despair, but about preparation. To live aware of the silver cord is to live with reverence, knowing that life is sacred and death is part of God's plan. He wanted people to carry this truth in their hearts so that they would face life with courage and death with peace. So why did Edgar Cayce warn so strongly about the silver cord at death? Because he knew it revealed the eternal truth of who we are. He knew that denying the spirit leads to confusion, but embracing it leads to light. He knew that every soul would face this moment, and he wanted us to be ready. His words remain as relevant today as when he first spoke them. Live in such a way that when the cord is loosed, your soul rises freely, without fear, into the arms of God. That was his vision, his warning, and his gift. If this message helped you see life and death with new eyes, I invite you to act now. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. I will mark every comment with a heart to show that your voice matters here. And together, we will continue to uncover the truths Edgar Cayce revealed about the soul, the body, and the eternal journey we are all a part of.
There are moments in history when a single voice breaks through the noise of an entire generation and leaves behind a trail of truth that refuses to be silenced. During the Great Depression, while families across America struggled just to put food on the table, a quiet man in Virginia Beach would lie down, close his eyes, and enter into a trance. His name was Edgar Cayce, the sleeping prophet. What he revealed during those sessions was not just advice for the sick or visions of the future, but insights that shook the very foundation of Christianity. Among his most extraordinary revelations was this: Christ is not confined to one lifetime, one place, or one set of teachings. Christ represents an infinite cosmic power, a living force that flows through the universe and through each human soul willing to awaken to it. That statement alone, whispered in a modest home in Virginia, carried implications that still challenge believers, scholars, and seekers today. And the shocking truth? Cayce did not invent this idea. He claimed he was merely reading it from the deepest records of the soul, what he called the Akashic records. One of his most impactful sessions in the early 1930s painted a vision so radical that those present sat in stunned silence. Cayce explained that Jesus of Nazareth embodied the Christ power in its highest form, but that the same force exists in every human being. This was not blasphemy in his eyes, it was revelation. He insisted that Christ was not limited to one historical figure, but represented the eternal pattern of divine consciousness available to anyone. During a session that changed the life of an entire family, he revealed that their struggles, illness, despair, broken relationships, were symptoms of having lost alignment with this cosmic current. His prescription? Not just medicine, not just prayer, but attunement to Christ as an infinite universal power that could heal body, mind, and spirit. For the people in that room, it was as if a door had been kicked open, showing them that Jesus was both their Savior and their example, pointing to a greater truth within themselves. To grasp the magnitude of this claim, we have to step back and place Cayce in his historical context. Picture the United States in 1932. Bread lines stretched across city blocks. Dust storms ravaged the Midwest. Families were losing farms, homes, and hope. Churches were filled with desperate prayers for survival. It was in this climate of despair that Cayce's words offered something more than comfort. They offered transformation. He spoke of a Christ power that was not bound to pews or pulpits, but one that lived in the very cells of the body and in the eternal spark of the soul. According to Cayce, Jesus demonstrated what was possible when a human fully surrendered to God's will, but he did not come to keep that power for himself. He came to show us that we, too, are called to awaken it. Imagine the shock of hearing that in a conservative Bible Belt America, where Cayce himself grew up in Hopkinsville, Kentucky. And yet, those who listened closely felt not rebellion, but resonance. Deep down, they knew he was pointing towards something that explained their inner hunger for God. Now here's where it gets even more mysterious. In several documented readings, Cayce described Christ not only as a savior in time, but as a cosmic principle that predated the creation of the world itself. He said that before there was form, before there was light, there was the Logos, the Word, and that this Word became flesh in Jesus. But it did not stop there. This same Logos continues to speak, continues to move, continues to call. For Cayce, Christ was not just a teacher of morals, but the very vibration of divine love woven into the fabric of creation. He explained that when we pray with sincerity, when we meditate on the presence of God, we align our bodies, our thoughts, and our souls with that same vibration. And what happens next often defies explanation. People find healing, not only of physical disease but of mental torment and spiritual confusion. Families torn apart by resentment begin to mend. Addictions loosen their grip. The impossible becomes possible. And Cayce would remind them, it is not Edgar who heals. It is Christ working through the infinite law of the Spirit. But here's what no one expected. Cayce went further than simply teaching about Christ's love. He dared to suggest that the power of Christ consciousness was the missing key to understanding not only the Bible, but the entire human journey through lifetimes. In one trance session, he revealed that many souls had walked with Jesus in past lives, some supporting him, others betraying him, and all learning from that encounter. This was not abstract theology. It meant that Christ's power was guiding humanity across centuries, through struggles and triumphs, wars and awakenings, always leading toward redemption. He even said that America itself had a spiritual destiny tied to whether it would live according to the Christ principle of love thy neighbor. Suddenly, Christ was not just a figure from ancient Palestine but a living presence, calling nations and individuals alike to a higher standard. Imagine the weight of those words during World War II, when soldiers were dying by the millions, and families back home clung to whatever hope they could find. And yet, Cayce always brought it back to the personal. He reminded people that the infinite cosmic power of Christ was not just about prophecy, not just about the fate of nations, but about the choices made in the silence of one's own heart. To forgive when anger burns, to serve when selfishness tempts, to trust when fear screams. He would say, Christ is the pattern, the way, the truth, the life. Follow that pattern, and you will know your oneness with Him. For those who heard, it wasn't simply another sermon. It was a roadmap to becoming more than they ever thought possible. And today, nearly a century later, His words still echo, challenging us to see Christ not as distant, but as infinite, waiting to awaken within us. When people heard Cayce speak of Christ as an infinite cosmic power, they often struggled at first. How could this simple man from Kentucky, with no formal theological training, dare to expand on the mysteries of the gospel? The answer was always the same. Cayce never claimed authorship. He said he was reading from the Akashic records, those universal archives where every thought, action, and intention of humanity is preserved. According to him, these records revealed not just the lives of individuals, but the grand design of creation itself. And in that design, Christ was not a side figure. He was the central current, the heartbeat of the universe. This concept startled ministers, inspired seekers, and forced even skeptics to reconsider what they thought they knew about Christianity. And yet, Cayce remained humble, often saying, "Take what is good, leave the rest." He did not ask for blind belief. He invited each person to test the truth in their own lives. One of the most extraordinary demonstrations of this truth happened during a session in the late 1930s, when a man suffering from a terminal illness was brought before Cayce. Doctors had given up hope. His family was preparing for the worst. While in trance, Cayce did not promise a magical cure, but he did say something that electrified the room. Within you is the same power that raised the body of Jesus from the tomb. Awaken to it, align with it, and it can restore you. The man followed Cayce's guidance, meditation, prayer, diet changes, and a complete surrender of his bitterness and resentment. Weeks later, doctors were stunned to see his condition reversing. For his family, it was nothing less than miraculous. But Cayce insisted it was not about him. It was about the Christ vibration that flows when the soul finally surrenders to love. This was not just theory. It was evidence of Christ's cosmic power at work in the lives of ordinary people. During World War II, when fear and uncertainty gripped the world, Cayce's readings turned repeatedly to Christ as the only true source of peace. Soldiers wrote to him from the battlefield. Mothers begged him for reassurance about their sons, and communities in despair looked for hope. In those dark years, Cayce reminded them that Christ's power was not limited by distance or circumstance. He said that when a soul truly attunes itself to Christ, that vibration can be felt across oceans, across battlefields, even across the divide of life and death. He described prayers rising like waves of light, touching soldiers who may never have known their families were on their knees. To Cayce, this was not poetic imagery. It was a literal reality of how consciousness operates. Christ was the bridge, and through him, no distance was too great, no night too dark. Imagine the comfort those words brought to a mother staring at an empty chair, knowing her prayer still reached her son through the infinite current of Christ. But here is where Cayce took a step further into mystery. He explained that the Christ power was not only available for healing and comfort, it was also the key to unlocking the destiny of humanity itself. In one of his most impactful readings of 1932, he revealed that the age we are living in is a transition period, a time when the Christ vibration would awaken in more and more souls, preparing humanity for a higher state of consciousness. He spoke of a coming era where selfishness and greed would no longer rule, where love and service would be the true measure of success. And yet, he warned, if humanity failed to align with the Christ principle, the consequences would be devastating. Wars, natural disasters, and societal collapse would follow, not as punishment from God, but as the natural outworking of living out of harmony with the cosmic order. These warnings still sound hauntingly relevant today, as we witness conflicts, divisions, and crises across the globe. Cayce's teachings also opened the door to a profound rereading of the Bible. He explained that many passages traditionally interpreted in narrow literal ways were actually veiled descriptions of the Christ power. For example, when Jesus said, "The kingdom of God is within you," Cayce insisted this was not metaphorical. It was a direct statement that the infinite Christ vibration resides in every soul, waiting to be awakened. Likewise, when Paul wrote, "Christ in you, the hope of glory," Cayce said this was the central message of Christianity. That divinity is not only above us, but within us. This interpretation did not replace faith in Jesus, it deepened it. It showed that following Christ was not about worshiping from afar, but about embodying his spirit in daily life, through forgiveness, compassion, humility, and courage. For the people who heard it, this was not just religion. It was a call to transformation. A realization that their lives were not ordinary but infused with eternal significance. And perhaps the most radical idea of all was Cayce's insistence that Christ's infinite cosmic power transcends death itself. In his view, death was not the end but a doorway through which the soul continues to grow, always guided by Christ. He described the afterlife not as a static heaven or hell, but as realms of experience where souls learn, heal, and evolve. In every realm, Christ is the light, drawing each soul closer to ultimate oneness with God. For grieving families, this was revolutionary. It meant that their loved ones were not lost, but continuing their journey in the presence of Christ. It meant that the bond of love was never broken. And it meant that each prayer, each act of faith, continued to ripple across dimensions in ways most of us can hardly imagine. To this day, those who study Cayce's work at the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach testify that these teachings have changed their understanding of both life and death, offering a hope that is not wishful thinking but grounded in lived experiences. One of the most striking aspects of Cayce's readings was the way he linked Christ's infinite power not just to personal healing or spiritual awakening, but to the destiny of entire civilizations. He warned repeatedly that societies rise or fall depending on how much they embody, or reject, the Christ principle of love and service. During one of his sessions that left witnesses shaken, he declared that America's true greatness would not come from wealth or military strength, but from its willingness to live out the teaching, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." That statement carried a weight far beyond religion. It was a warning that selfishness, greed, and hatred would eventually bring collapse. And for those listening during the Great Depression, or later during the World Wars, this message felt like a lifeline. It was as if Cayce was saying, Christ's power is not confined to church walls. It is the foundation of whether nations thrive or crumble. But here is where Cayce introduced a perspective few could have imagined. He explained that Christ had manifested not only in the person of Jesus, but as a cosmic presence guiding humanity through every age. In other words, Christ was not a single historical event, but the eternal mediator between God and humanity, present before creation and active in every era since. Cayce described this as the Logos, the divine word, that spoke the universe into existence. Jesus of Nazareth, he said, was the perfect embodiment of that Logos, showing us what it looks like when a human fully aligns with divine will. Yet, Cayce stressed, the invitation was not exclusive. Every soul, no matter how flawed or broken, carries a spark of that same infinite power. To deny it is to live half asleep. To awaken to it is to participate in the same current of love that sustains galaxies. Consider the impact this had on those seeking answers about reincarnation. Cayce's readings often shocked people by affirming that souls live many lifetimes, each one a step in the journey toward wholeness. But he always placed Christ at the center of that process. He said that whether a soul was incarnated in ancient Egypt, in Greece, in medieval Europe, or in modern America, Christ was the guiding pattern drawing it closer to God. For some, this meant redemption after lifetimes of error. For others, it meant carrying forward lessons of service and sacrifice. But in every case, the Christ principle was the light that never failed. Imagine being told that your struggles today are not random misfortunes, but lessons connected to a vast cosmic story in which Christ is patiently leading you home. For many, this reframed suffering itself, turning despair into meaning and fear into trust. During the years of global war, Cayce also revealed that Christ's infinite power was not a distant abstraction. It could be called upon in practical ways. He urged people to pray not only for their families, but for enemies, insisting that love was the only force strong enough to break the cycle of violence. He warned that hatred, even when justified by war, planted seeds that would bear bitter fruit for generations. This was not easy to hear at a time when bombs were falling and nations demanded loyalty. But Cayce remained unwavering. He said that Christ's power was stronger than any weapon, and that forgiveness held more potential for shaping the future than revenge. In hindsight, his words echo with even greater urgency today, in a world still torn apart by conflict. What he offered was not just spiritual comfort, it was a roadmap for survival. And yet, despite the cosmic scale of his revelations, Cayce never lost sight of the individual. Again and again, he reminded people that the infinite Christ power is experienced in the most personal of ways, in the quiet moment of prayer before dawn, in the decision to forgive when bitterness seems easier, in the act of serving someone who has nothing to give in return. Christ is the pattern, Cayce would say. Live that pattern, and you will know the power. For those who took his counsel seriously, the results were transformative. Families reconciled. Addicts found freedom. The sick recovered, not because Cayce was a miracle worker, but because they had discovered how to align with the universal current of divine love that he insisted was available to all. The mystery is not whether Christ's power exists, it is whether we dare to open ourselves to it. Cayce often spoke of Christ's cosmic power, not just as a truth for individuals, but as a prophecy for the human race. He believed we were standing at the threshold of a new era, one in which more souls would awaken to Christ consciousness than at any other time in history. In one session during the war years, he declared that humanity was being tested. Would we continue down the path of selfishness, division, and destruction? Or would we open ourselves to the unifying current of Christ's love? This was not sentimental rhetoric. Cayce saw it as the deciding factor in whether civilization itself would survive. And while his words were spoken in the mid-20th century, they ring even louder today. With technology accelerating, nations clashing, and people hungrier than ever for meaning, the idea that Christ's power is the key to humanity's destiny feels less like theology and more like necessity. He explained that this awakening would not come through force, dogma, or fear, but through individual transformation. Each soul that chooses forgiveness over vengeance, service over selfishness, compassion over indifference, becomes a vessel for Christ's infinite vibration. Cayce described this process like ripples in water. When one life changes, it touches another, and then another, until entire communities are reshaped. Imagine if thousands, even millions of souls lived from that consciousness. Wars would lose their fuel. Poverty would lose its chains. Prejudice would wither. the world would look radically different. And this was Cayce's ultimate point. Christ's cosmic power is not only about eternal life beyond death. It is about creating the kingdom of God here and now, in the way we treat each other. One of the most moving elements of his teachings is how ordinary people found hope through them. Letters preserved in the archives of the Association for Research and Enlightenment in Virginia Beach tell stories of mothers who found courage to face loss, of veterans who discovered peace after trauma, of seekers who found healing from despair. In each case, it was not Cayce's personality that changed them. It was their own awakening to the Christ presence within. That is why his legacy endures. Long after his passing in 1945, people still travel to Virginia Beach to study his words, meditate in silence, and discover that what he said was true. Christ's infinite cosmic power is not locked in the past, but alive in every heartbeat, waiting for us to claim it. Perhaps the most haunting part of Cayce's vision was his insistence that the greatest battles of humanity are not fought on fields with armies, but within the soul of every individual. Each time we choose fear, we diminish the Christ vibration in the world. Each time we choose love, we amplify it. Cayce framed this as the true spiritual war. The war to recognize Christ not as distant, not as unreachable, but as the very pattern of our own highest potential. And in a time when the world feels divided, his words offer both warning and promise. The power that can heal nations and transform lives has always been within us, because Christ is infinite, and Christ is here. Today, almost a century after Edgar Cayce first spoke these words in a small room in Virginia Beach, his message about Christ's infinite cosmic power feels more urgent than ever. The archives of his readings continue to inspire seekers across the world, not because they offer a new religion, but because they point us back to the essence of all true spirituality: love in action. Cayce reminded us that Christ's power is not limited to saints, prophets, or mystics. It is alive in the simplest acts of kindness, in the quiet strength of prayer, and in the courage to forgive when the world tells us to hate. And that may be the greatest secret of all: the cosmic is revealed in the ordinary. Every moment becomes a chance to awaken the Christ vibration within us, to choose light over darkness, and to become, in Cayce's words, channels of blessing for others. The practical side of Cayce's teaching was just as important as the mystical. He gave specific guidance on prayer, meditation, diet, service, and daily living. Not as rules to follow blindly, but as ways of tuning the body and mind to the higher frequencies of spirit. He insisted that the soul was like an instrument, and unless we kept it tuned through right living, we could not resonate fully with Christ's infinite power. This is why his legacy has endured not only in books, but in communities of practice. To this day, people gather to meditate, study his readings, and support one another in applying Christ consciousness to the challenges of modern life. And every story of healing, every reconciliation, every step away from despair toward hope, stands as evidence that Cayce's vision was not fantasy. It was truth lived out in the lives of ordinary men and women. As we reflect on Cayce's extraordinary life, the question that lingers is simple but profound. What will we do with this knowledge? If Christ's power truly flows through the universe, if it truly waits within each of us, then every choice matters more than we imagine. The way we speak to a stranger, the way we treat a loved one, the way we respond to fear or anger, all of it becomes a declaration of whether we are asleep or awake to the infinite presence of Christ. Cayce's life was a reminder that spirituality is not about escape, but about transformation. And the transformation begins not tomorrow, not someday, but now. So here's the invitation. Take these words not as distant history, but as a personal call. Edgar Cayce did not point to himself, he pointed to Christ. And Christ, he said, is infinite, bigger than our fears, stronger than our failures, present in every breath we take. The same power that healed the sick, comforted the grieving, and guided souls across lifetimes is here for you. It is not hidden. It is not locked away. It is waiting in the silence of your own heart, ready to rise the moment you choose love. And when you do, you will find that you are not alone. For this power has been guiding humanity since the dawn of time, and it will continue until every soul remembers who they truly are. If these revelations spoke to you, if they stirred something deep within, I invite you to take the next step. Join this community of seekers, where we explore the mysteries of Edgar Cayce, Christ consciousness, and the infinite journey of the soul. Like this video, share it with those who need hope, and subscribe to stay connected with teachings that can transform your life. Most importantly, reflect on how you will awaken Christ's power in your own journey. Because the truth is not just that Edgar Cayce revealed Christ's infinite cosmic power. The truth is that this power is already within you, waiting to be lived.
According to Edgar Cayce, every human being walks through life attached by a mysterious and sacred bond, the silver cord. Invisible to the eye, yet powerful enough to determine the moment when the soul leaves the body, this cord is described in the Bible and confirmed in Cayce's readings as the very thread that sustains our earthly existence. Without it, breath ceases, the body falls, and the spirit begins its journey to another dimension. Think about this for a moment. If your soul is held here by a divine cord, what does that say about the purpose of your life, your faith, and your destiny beyond death? This is not a metaphor, it is a revelation that challenges both science and religion, and it forces us to look at life not as random but as divinely ordered. I want you to stay with me until the end of this video, because the details Cayce uncovered about the silver cord may completely change how you understand your existence. And I want you to interact. Write in the comments what you believe about the soul's bond with the body, and I will personally mark every comment with a heart to show that your voice is valued here. Edgar Cayce spoke of mysteries that connect the physical and the spiritual in ways most people never dare to imagine. Among his many revelations, one stands out as both haunting and deeply comforting: the existence of the silver cord. He described it as the vital link that keeps the soul tied to the body, a cord of light and energy that remains intact as long as our earthly journey continues. When this cord is broken, the body ceases to function, and the soul is released to begin its passage into the afterlife. This was not speculation or fantasy, but part of his documented readings, where he consistently affirmed that life is not confined to flesh and bones, but is held together by spiritual laws far greater than what science can measure. The Bible itself, in the book of Ecclesiastes, mentions this mysterious cord, declaring that when the silver cord is loosed, the spirit returns to God who gave it. Cayce's insights did not invent this idea but expanded on it, showing how it works as a divine bridge between two worlds. Think about what this means for a moment. Every breath you take, every heartbeat, every second of consciousness is not just a function of biology but of spirit. The silver cord is the divine tether that ensures your soul can inhabit your body, giving you the chance to grow, learn, love, and evolve in this physical dimension. Cayce explained that this connection reflects God's mercy, because the human soul is eternal, and without this binding cord, we would drift away from the lessons of earthly life before our time. He described how, in moments close to death, some people might feel or even perceive this cord, often during near-death experiences, where the sensation of floating above the body is accompanied by a line of light still holding the spirit to the flesh. Such moments are not delusions of the brain, but glimpses of spiritual reality, where the soul almost departs yet remains connected because the cord has not yet been severed. Cayce emphasized that this knowledge should not fill us with fear, but with reverence. If the silver cord truly exists, and his readings affirm that it does, then life is much more than the years we count. It is a sacred opportunity, a temporary stage in which our soul is tested, refined, and prepared for higher dimensions. The cord is a reminder that the body is not the true self, but a vessel sustained by divine design. Imagine the implications of this. When you sleep at night and dream, Cayce explained that your spirit can partially leave the body, traveling through planes of consciousness, yet it always remains connected by this cord, ensuring your return upon awakening. That explains why dreams can sometimes feel more real than waking life, because your soul has truly touched another realm. But the cord pulls you back to fulfill your duties here. The mystery deepens when we consider death itself. According to Cayce, death is not an end, but the moment when the silver cord is finally released. He described it as a peaceful separation, though it can be resisted if a soul clings to the material world. This is why he urged people to live with faith, kindness, and spiritual awareness, so that when the time comes, the release of the cord is experienced not as terror, but as liberation. He warned that those who live in selfishness, cruelty, or denial of the spirit may face confusion as the cord loosens, struggling to accept the passage. But those who prepare their souls with prayer, meditation, and service will find that the breaking of the cord is like stepping into a greater light, embraced by divine love. For Cayce, the silver cord symbolized the continuity of consciousness. He explained that even while alive, we are never fully bound to this earth. Part of us is always connected to God, and the cord is that lifeline. In his readings, he compared it to an umbilical cord for the soul, drawing spiritual nourishment from the divine source. Just as a child in the womb cannot survive without the cord that ties it to the mother, so too the human soul cannot live in the body without the silver cord. And when the time of birth into the spiritual world arrives, that cord is severed, allowing the soul to live in a higher dimension. This profound analogy shows that death, far from being destruction, is another kind of birth, the moment when we are finally delivered into eternity. Cayce's descriptions resonate deeply with ancient traditions as well. In various mystical teachings, the idea of a luminous cord has appeared, sometimes called the thread of life, sometimes the bridge of light. What made Cayce unique is that his accounts came not from philosophy or speculation, but from trance states in which he provided practical and spiritual guidance to people who sought his help. He never used these revelations to inspire fear, but to encourage people to live with greater purpose. The silver cord to him was proof that our lives are safeguarded by God, and that our souls are meant for more than just survival. He urged his followers to understand this truth, so they would live each day with the awareness that their actions and choices echo into eternity. Cayce also connected the silver cord to the process of out-of-body experiences, which many people reported long before modern science began to study them. He explained that during deep meditation or altered states of consciousness, the soul can rise above the body and explore higher planes, but it always remains attached through the cord until the physical life is complete. Some people who went through near-death experiences described exactly what Cayce had spoken of decades earlier. They saw themselves floating above hospital beds, watching doctors and loved ones, while a shimmering cord of light still tied them back to their body. These testimonies, though dismissed by skeptics, align with the descriptions found in his readings, reinforcing the idea that the silver cord is not myth, but spiritual reality. In these states, Cayce reminded, the cord acts as both a protection and a boundary, allowing us glimpses of eternity while still calling us back to fulfill our earthly mission. He went further by linking this mysterious bond to the universal law of cause and effect. In his readings, Cayce explained that how we live directly affects how the cord is finally released. A life lived with harmony, forgiveness, and devotion to God allows the transition to be smooth and filled with light. But a life of bitterness or hatred can weigh the soul down, creating confusion when the bond is broken. For Cayce, this was not punishment, but the natural result of spiritual laws. Just as neglecting the body brings illness, neglecting the soul brings spiritual imbalance, and that imbalance can be felt in the moment when the cord is cut. This perspective urged people to take responsibility not only for their physical health, but also for their spiritual well-being, because both are tied together through this divine link. Cayce often pointed to scripture to affirm his revelations. He highlighted Ecclesiastes 12, where the loosening of the silver cord is directly connected to the return of the spirit to God. He showed how ancient wisdom had already recognized the existence of this link and how modern life had forgotten it. By bringing attention back to this truth, Cayce's mission was to awaken faith in people's hearts. He made it clear that we are not wandering accidents of biology, but eternal beings temporarily housed in flesh, tied to heaven through this luminous cord. He urged his followers to see every act of kindness, every prayer and every choice, as part of preparing for the inevitable moment when the cord would be released. In doing so, he removed the fear of death and replaced it with a sense of purpose and hope. Another dimension of Cayce's explanation lies in how the silver cord relates to dreams. He described dreams not as random images of the mind, but as real experiences of the soul on other planes of existence. The cord ensures that even as your spirit roams in dreams, learning, healing, and sometimes receiving divine messages, it will return to the body upon awakening. This is why Cayce encouraged people to record and study their dreams, because he believed they held guidance from the higher realms. In his view, the silver cord was the assurance that the journey in dreams was safe, that God had provided a tether, so that no matter how far the soul traveled in the night, it could always come back to complete its purpose in the physical world. This made dreams not just psychological events, but spiritual lessons guarded by a divine thread. This understanding of the cord also sheds light on why sudden accidents, traumas, or illnesses can feel like moments when the soul nearly departs. Cayce explained that in these moments the cord is stretched, the spirit partially leaves, and people may see visions, lights, or even deceased loved ones. But unless the cord is broken, they return. Countless testimonies of people who came back from the brink of death confirm this description. They speak of tunnels, lights, or hovering above their bodies, yet always with the sensation of being pulled back, as if by something beyond their control. Cayce's readings affirm that what pulls them back is the silver cord, the final proof that their time has not yet come. Only when God allows the cord to break does the soul truly depart into the next world. For Cayce, the silver cord was not merely a mystical curiosity, it was a reminder of responsibility. If the cord ties you here, then your time on earth is not accidental. You are here for a reason, and that reason is tied to your growth, your service to others, and your relationship with the divine. He taught that we should never take life for granted, because every day, every moment, we are connected to eternity by this fragile yet unbreakable cord. The awareness of this truth should inspire gratitude, humility, and the courage to live in alignment with God's will. To know that your life is literally hanging by a divine thread is not meant to frighten but to awaken. It is a call to live more fully, more spiritually, more faithfully. Cayce also revealed that the silver cord plays a role in how souls transition between incarnations. He explained that reincarnation is not simply a process of entering and leaving the physical, but a continuation of learning. The cord represents the law of connection, a spiritual principle that ensures no life is wasted. When the cord is severed, the soul is free to return to its true home in spirit, where it reviews its deeds, its failures, and its growth. From there, guided by divine forces, it chooses or is guided to another body, another opportunity to evolve. This cycle reflects not randomness but order, the same order symbolized by the silver cord itself. The cord shows that nothing in creation is without design, that God's will governs the beginning and the end of every life. For Cayce, the presence of the cord was proof of divine intelligence, a reminder that death itself is part of a larger plan of renewal. In describing the silver cord, Cayce emphasized that it is not visible in the ordinary sense. It cannot be measured with instruments, yet it can be perceived spiritually. Some people with heightened sensitivity, he explained, could see or sense this luminous thread, especially around those who are close to passing. It is not a physical cord, but an energy, a vibration that ties the subtle body to the physical. This idea aligns with his broader teachings on the human aura, where he described fields of energy surrounding every person, reflecting their spiritual state. The cord, then, is the central channel, the vital connection among these energies. It acts as the highway for life force, the divine spark flowing into the body. Without it, the body is like a lamp without electricity, unable to shine, unable to live. What makes Cayce's words so powerful is how they merge faith with experience. He never asked people to believe blindly. Instead, he offered insights that could be tested through observation, prayer, and inner reflection. Many who listened to his readings found confirmation in their own lives, dreams that felt too real, visions at the bedside of loved ones, near-death experiences that mirrored his descriptions. The silver cord became not just a mystical teaching, but a lens to understand human existence. By seeing life as held by this divine tether, people began to value each moment differently. Every relationship, every act of love, every challenge became part of preparing the soul for that final release. The cord turned death into a passage, not an end, and reminded believers that God's presence is continuous, even when unseen. Another fascinating point in Cayce's readings was the way the cord is linked to the mind. He explained that thoughts are not confined to the brain, but extend into the spiritual body. Through the cord, impressions, inspirations, and even divine guidance can reach us. This is why prayer and meditation, according to Cayce, have such a profound effect not only on the mind but on the body itself. When a person prays sincerely, the cord is like an open channel to the divine, strengthening the soul's connection with God. When a person fills their mind with bitterness or despair, that same channel is clouded and the cord feels strained. This does not mean it will break prematurely, but it reveals how our state of consciousness directly interacts with our life force. In this way, the cord is both a safeguard and a mirror of the soul's condition. Cayce encouraged his followers to use this knowledge not just as a source of curiosity, but as a guide for living. He often said that understanding spiritual truths is useless unless they are applied. To know that the silver cord ties your soul to your body is to know that life is sacred, fragile, and divinely protected. It should lead you to live with greater kindness, to forgive more easily, to let go of resentment, and to embrace your purpose with courage. Because one day when the cord is released, the only thing that matters is what you have done with the time God has given you. Cayce's teachings on the silver cord remind us that our choices are eternal. They echo beyond the grave, shaping not only our destiny after death but the experiences we will carry into future lives. Cayce's explanation of the silver cord also gives new meaning to the way we view suffering and illness. He pointed out that while the body may weaken, the cord remains strong until the appointed time of release. This means that no illness, no accident, no suffering has the final word unless God allows the cord to break. For those who are ill, this teaching offers comfort. Life does not end in chaos but in divine order. The moment of passing is not random, but part of a sacred design. He described how, even in the hardest moments of pain, the soul remains safe, protected by this divine tether, until its true release comes. This changes the way we view both life and death. Rather than fear, there is trust. Rather than despair, there is hope. To know that your soul is tied by the silver cord is to know that nothing happens outside of God's will. At the same time, Cayce warned that human choices influence how peacefully this transition occurs. He taught that living in harmony with spiritual principles, such as love, service, forgiveness, and prayer, makes the breaking of the cord gentle, like falling asleep and awakening in another room filled with light. But those who harden their hearts, who deny the Spirit, who live only for selfish gain may experience confusion, fear, and resistance when the cord is finally released. This is not punishment from God, Cayce insisted, but the natural result of how the soul has aligned itself during life. Just as the cord binds us to the body, our choices bind us to certain states of consciousness. When the separation comes, we enter the world our choices have prepared for us. In this way, the silver cord is not only about death but about life. It reminds us that our daily actions are not trivial. Every word, every thought, every deed strengthens or weakens our readiness for the inevitable moment of release. Cayce urged his listeners to live as if every day were preparation, not in fear of death but in anticipation of greater life. To know that your soul is tied by such a cord is to realize that you are never separate from the divine, that even now as you breathe and think and move, you are connected to eternity. This awareness can transform how you live, how you treat others, and how you approach challenges. It gives every moment a weight that is both sobering and inspiring. The testimony of those who stood at the edge of death and returned often echoed Cayce's insights. Many described feeling a sudden lifting, a sensation of being outside their bodies, looking down at themselves, while still feeling tied by something luminous. They spoke of hearing voices, seeing loved ones, or moving toward a light, yet being pulled back. When Cayce spoke of these experiences decades earlier, science dismissed them as hallucinations. But today, with countless accounts from around the world, many begin to see that what he described was true. The silver cord is the line between two dimensions, the final proof that our existence is not confined to flesh. When it is intact, we remain. When it is broken, we pass on. For Cayce, the silver cord was also a symbol of God's mercy. He explained that the human soul is powerful beyond measure, but in the physical world it is limited by design. The cord ensures that while we experience life in this dimension, We do not lose ourselves entirely in the material. It is both a lifeline and a boundary, keeping us anchored so that we can complete the lessons of this earthly school. Without the cord, the soul would drift too easily into other realms, neglecting the responsibilities of human existence. With it, we are forced to face the trials, the joys, and the duties that shape our growth. Cayce said this was God's way of ensuring balance, of keeping humanity grounded, while still allowing glimpses of eternity through prayer, meditation, and dreams. He also explained that the moment of death, when the silver cord breaks, is not chaotic, but profoundly organized. According to Cayce, spiritual helpers, guides, and loved ones often appear to assist the departing soul. They do not cut the cord prematurely, but they welcome the soul once it is released. This means that no one truly dies alone. Even in the silence of a hospital bed, even in the solitude of a final breath, the soul is met by light and companionship. The breaking of the cord is simply the unlocking of a door, and beyond it stands a reality more vast than anything we can imagine. Cayce wanted people to understand this, so that fear of death would not rule their lives. Instead of fear, there should be faith. Instead of despair, trust in the divine order that governs all existence. Dreams, near-death experiences, ancient scriptures, and Cayce's own readings all converge on this truth. The silver cord is real, and its reality should not only make us reflect on death, but inspire us to live better now. To know that life is literally sustained by a divine thread is to recognize how sacred every action is. It means that forgiving someone today is not just a personal choice, but preparation for eternity. It means that offering kindness, prayer, or love is not wasted but woven into the very fabric of your soul. Every time you align yourself with God's will, you prepare for the moment when the cord is released, ensuring that when it happens, you will step into light rather than darkness, peace rather than confusion. Cayce's teachings challenge us to ask hard questions. How are we living today? Are we preparing our souls for the release of the cord, or are we binding ourselves to fear, anger, and selfishness? If the cord were to break tonight, what state would we carry into eternity? These are not questions meant to scare, but to awaken. They remind us that the time we have is precious, that life is a temporary gift, and that eternity awaits. By reflecting on the reality of the silver cord, we come face to face with the urgency of faith, the necessity of love, and the promise of God's eternal presence. Cayce's revelation of the silver cord ultimately leads to one conclusion: life is sacred, and death is not the end. The body may age, it may weaken, but the soul is always connected to God through this divine thread until the moment of release. When that moment comes, it is not a tragedy, but a transition. Cayce described death as a gentle movement of the soul into greater light, the same way a child leaves the womb and enters a wider world. The cord is cut, not by chance, but by divine will, and the soul awakens to a reality more real than anything experienced on earth. This truth removes the fear of death and replaces it with responsibility. How we live, how we love, and how we believe will shape the journey once the cord is released. For those still living, the knowledge of the silver cord should inspire a new way of seeing existence. It should remind us that every breath is borrowed grace, every heartbeat a gift, every day an opportunity to grow. To live aware of this cord is to live aware of eternity. Cayce urged us to use this awareness not to withdraw from life, but to embrace it more fully, to see relationships as eternal bonds, to treat others with compassion, and to cultivate faith in God. Because when the cord is released, only these things, love, faith, kindness, will matter. Wealth, power, status, and pride dissolve. The soul carries only what it has built in spirit. And so the silver cord is both mystery and invitation. It reminds us that we are more than flesh, more than temporary beings. It tells us that we are eternal, tied to God, sustained by His will, and destined to return to Him. Edgar Cayce's words echo across time, calling us to live differently, to live with reverence for the unseen, and to prepare for the moment of release. The question is not if the cord will break, but how we will be when it does. Will we be ready to step into light, or will we cling in fear? The answer depends on how we live now. If this message touched you, I invite you to take one step further. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments below. I want to hear your perspective, your faith, your questions, and I will mark every single comment with a heart to show that your voice was heard. Together, we can build a community that seeks truth, that honors God, and that lives every day aware of the sacred cord that ties us to eternity.